Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Willie, and this is the encouraging word for today. Satan has strategies against us, different schemes that he works, and he changes his strategy according to where we are in our spiritual journey and in our spiritual maturity. Before we come to Christ, the majority of the temptations are temptations of the flesh, the desires of the flesh. If you think about Jesus in the wilderness, as recorded in Matthew chapter 4, the first temptation, Jesus was hungry. It's a physical desire. And there's some stones, and Satan says, if you are the Son of God, change the stones into bread. So the temptation is appealing to our physical desires. It could be wrong sexual activity. It could be alcoholism, drug addiction, some type of physical appeal in a wrong, fulfilling it in a wrong way. But then when we come to Christ, we start conquering those, overcoming those strategies of Satan. But then Satan shifts his strategy. And then if you go back to Matthew chapter 4, again, the second temptation, which I believe these three temptations are like a prototype of all the temptations we face. The second temptation was to throw himself down and angels would catch him. In other words, it's testing God. Testing faith. Do you trust God? Well, if you really trust him, prove it. Prove it. So Satan shifts and starts testing our faith. Testing our faith. Now, all of these temptations, we still have temptations of the flesh, but Satan is shifting, and now he's testing our faith, which didn't happen before because we didn't have faith. So there are tests of our faith. And the third general test, which comes when we start maturing, maybe taking a new step in our life, Jesus was taken and shown all the kingdoms of the world. And he said, all this could be yours if you bow down and worship me. So the fourth temptation, I believe, is a temptation to pride. All this is mine. But it's combined with other temptations there, but it's pride. All this is mine. This is mine, mine, mine. Now, naturally, that can come in the first stage, the second stage, any stage of our life. But that's the main shift in Satan's strategy towards us. We start doing good. We start maybe working in ministry as a greeter in a church or in a prayer team. And Satan comes in with that pride. Look how good you are. Look how good you're doing. And subtly we even get a religious pride. And we puff ourselves up. I'm better than other people. So Timothy is a new minister of Christ. And Paul has put Timothy in charge of the church at Ephesus. And Timothy's now a leader, a young leader. And Timothy's been given gifts. He has a lot of good gifts, or Paul would have not given him those opportunities to exercise his gifts. And Paul is writing a letter. This is Paul's last letter. And he wants Timothy, more than anything else, to be confident in the gifts that God has given him. But the flip side is that if he has gifts, he can start to fall prey to that third general type of temptation, that it's all about him. Hey, I'm doing a great job preaching today. Didn't I do a great job? And start thinking, pride comes in. Pride comes in. The main thing about pride is to recognize it. I could give a a good video on YouTube, I get 1,000 likes. I go, wow, I'm really doing good. I'm good. And pride makes its subtle way into our hearts. That's Satan's shifting strategy. So Paul wants Timothy to be confident but not prideful. And God wants you and me to be confident and not prideful. Confident in what God has called us to do. Confidence is necessary. Without confidence, you will not take a step. Without confidence, if you're a leader, no one will follow you if you have no confidence. But the danger is Satan will shift the confidence into pride. So Paul writes a letter, and this is one of the first things, we're looking at 2 Timothy, one of the first things he mentions to Timothy. As I said, Timothy has leadership abilities, pastoral abilities, and those are prime areas where pride can come in. And the thing about pride is many times we don't even see it. We give it a spiritual veneer, a coat of spiritual paint on it. But Timothy has those, but he seems hesitant to use them. He seems timid. He has a lack of courage. And I believe part of it, this is just my belief, my understanding, is that he has a fear of being seen as prideful. He doesn't want to be prideful, particularly with public gifts where you're in public and people see you. We have a tendency, a hesitancy not to be seen as prideful. And so we confuse humility with timidity, which are different. Or we confuse confidence with pride. The problem becomes then that we do not assert ourselves. We do not take charge when we need to take charge. And when we don't take charge, we don't assert ourselves, a vacuum is created. When leadership does not lead, there is a vacuum created. Whether it's in the family, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the government, any aspect of life, on the job. And that vacuum will be filled by someone, and almost certainly not by a godly person. So Satan seeks to change our understanding of confidence, which is biblical, into pride, which is a sin. And so Timothy, I believe, was stepping back. So Paul wants to address this foundational issue in Timothy's life. So in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6 through 7, Paul says this: "For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline, or a sound mind." He's telling him, fan into flame. Stir up the gifts that are in you. You have the gifts. They were given you for a purpose, to use them. So I'm reminding you, fan them into flame. And if you look back at the book of 1 Timothy, the first letter that we have that Paul sent to him, he warns him against neglecting your gifts. So we can neglect our gift. And if we don't fan it into flame, our gift will not be used. And that's a danger that's happening to Timothy. But he says, you have the gift of God. So it's not our gift. This is key. It's not our gift. It's God's gift in me. It's not your gift. It's not, it's God's gift in you. That's the difference between confidence. You can have confidence that God has given you a gift. But pride is when you think you are the gift. Well, the gift comes from you. The gift of God, which is in you. The gift of God, which is in you. There's no occasion for pride there. It's not me. It's God's gift in me. Your confidence is that God will work through you. That's your confidence. That's confidence. That's godly, biblical confidence. God's given me this gift of intercession, and God's going to work through me. I don't have to be timid. Satan tries to twist it and say, you're not being humble. You're not being humble. So that's false humility. That's timidity. And then we end up not doing anything. Then Paul says, for the Spirit God gave us, again, it comes from God. It comes from God. It's not on our part. The Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us, repeatedly saying, God gives you, but gives us power. So we have power. And listen, if you have power, you have to exercise the power. Jesus gave us all authority over demonic. We can't have to exercise it. We can't be timid. And it's not because of us, not because you're somebody special. You have a delegated authority from God. He gives us power, love, exercised in love, and with self-discipline. Reminds me of the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 8. Paul's talking again about the gifts. And he said, if your gift is to encourage, then give encouragement. If the gift is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, then do it generously. Another translation, if your gift is leading, lead. God called you to lead. Doesn't mean you're prideful because you're exercising your gift. If it's to show mercy, do it cheerfully. Do it cheerfully. So the key, my friends, is to remember whatever gift you have comes from God, and God is going to work through you. You're just the instrument. It's not your gift, and it's not you doing it. It comes from God. That'll give you confidence and humility at the same time. And you'll avoid pride, which is the sin that Satan wants you to fall into. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you again tomorrow. God bless you.